did you come back for your brother? And I said, let me know how he is. And then she never responded to me.
I thought they were back for doing family Christmas. Actually, they have kind of a late
Well, she told me
thing
it
up in
was her
Decatur.
brother. I know she had been up there quite a few times because he couldn't.
No, he had real bad aphasia. Yeah, it was messed up.
Didn't he have a stroke? I think he had. Well, they really figure he taking care of him. Oh, you better believe it. So that's why I thought maybe he had died. I think they were.
I hadn't heard that, and I think I would have heard it.
Oh yeah, Erica, Rika would have known.
I would have thought Rika would have known. Yeah. So. Oh dear.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
Good. I work from home and I stepped outside this afternoon. I'm like, whoa.
That was terrible.
I didn't have any reason to go out. I heard the wind. I heard the storms last night.
It was a pretty spectacular storm last night.
Yeah,
For
it was,
all of
wasn't it?
about 15
know-
rocking and rolling minutes.
In the middle of February or the end of February.
I never heard it. I did not hear it. I
it
got
was-
up about 2 o'clock.
I felt it. I thought they took out a tree next to my house.
Yeah, that's what
just
someone was talking on the radio this morning about that. The house rocked.
Yeah, it came through pretty quick. Well, hey. Good evening.
Sediment that's falling out. They've got a drain ditch that's supposed to be finished in water. 8 inches of sediment once.
Smart enough to put some heat on in here.
I'm gonna say you didn't go change it?
I know. No, I walked in. I said, I got him conquered.
There you go.
Us older folks, blood runs a little slower. They gotta watch out for that.
Well, it just feels good. Coming in from outside.
Went to the store yesterday with a shirt on. And today I had that
Beautiful.
Medina's, but I don't think she's here, so.
right.
Closer.
Oh. I think so, no. I don't see her here, so. If her nameplate's not even up, so I'm assuming she's excused. I just think
They sit in that spot. Maybe that light is out. No,
Yeah,
there's
the
one.
spotlight
No,
light on.
it's not out. They're just not on. It's not on. Sometimes
I
we
don't
have
know
them
how
on.
it reflects on TV. Yeah.
Oh. Whoa.
That's what everybody says.
And Miss Harmon said, there is light.
I'll get you something. I gotta go send some to the printer. Text it to you.
Is Medina coming today?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Okay, because I have her packet. In fact, I'm worried about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I got her packet. Okay, so that's
Cool. Thank you.
printing this whole stack and making the cartridge just $150 a pop. It's my personal cartridge.
Oh,
Application for
okay.
business item number 3 or 4. I forget which one.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
This isn't on the agenda though, is it? afterwards?
Yeah,
Extra one here.
Huh? Sure.
Here.
you're saying that.
I have a copy here. Because you gave me Medina's, I grabbed it from.
This says,
Patient and new business.
I was working all day. I left my glasses on my tables and I'm gonna be squinting all evening. I can't, everything is slightly blurred. Just good luck.
Bell Point Estates. It's item number
oh
4.
yeah, why did they put Walden Woods on there? See right there, Walden Woods subdivision is,
It's not in Walden Woods
Oh, is that
subdivision, is it?
Bell Point is the one on Ecorse Road, but this is a description for the Bell Point, something's not, yeah,
Yeah, I have to ask Dan.
yeah. I don't know what it has to do with Walden Woods, but I see it's,
Yeah, no, I know
It's a Bell
I
Point.
know exactly what you're saying.
yeah,
Well, everything on the back.
It's there. I can't remember which one it
Yeah.
is.
It's Gilbert, but it says, does it say Walden Woods on it?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm?
Oh,
Mhm.
well, we can open the meeting and ask.
Yeah, that we will find out.
well, maybe it shouldn't just say Walden Woods.
Yeah, maybe that's just, I don't know. All right, so we can ask Dan when the meeting starts, when we get to that.
Be
action
Bell
item.
Point.
Go and ask him now, because we got a couple minutes, run and ask him now.
Got an issue on the agenda?
Where does that say?
Hey, boss.
How are you?
Good so far.
See how it goes. Bell Point. I'll make sure that gets corrected for the record. I'll mention it. Okay,
Been
thanks.
busy at work, huh?
It's been that way for last year.
Take care of it.
I feel good.
You feel good? You got all your notes.
Dancing.
You ready, Director Power?
Whenever you're ready, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. Just get things set up.
Good evening and welcome to the Charter Township of Van Buren Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, February 28th, 2024, and I'm calling the meeting to order. At this time, can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving ahead, can we have a roll call, please?
Sherry Budd,
Here.
Bernie Grant,
Here.
Peter Creel. Medina Atchison is excused. Jackson Paul.
Here.
Jeff Jar.
Here.
Brian Cullen.
Here. Okay, we also have an agenda before us. Do we have any motion concerning the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jar, support by Treasurer Bud to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion about the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Second up is the approval of minutes from the meeting of January 24th, 2024. At this point, I'd like to make a note that it was a regular meeting, not a special meeting at that time. So do we have any discussion about, or any motion concerning the minutes? Excuse me.
Sure, I move to approve the meeting minutes as submitted.
We got a motion by Commissioner Jar, support by Commissioner Pohl. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We don't have any correspondence or announcements at this point, but we do have a public hearing. And at this time, item number 1, case 23075, Cobblestone Creek Phase 3 Revision Public Hearing. A request by applicant David Straub of MI Homes of Michigan LLC to amend the Cobblestone Creek Planned Residential Development, PRD, project to complete the project with a total of 35 of the, which is 22.7% of the 154 detached single-family home sites having side entry-oriented garages. This will require a general revision to the previously approved PRD, which requires special land use review and a preliminary and final revision to the PRD plan and agreement. This requires a public hearing under section 6.221A and Article 12, Chapter 6 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance. The site is zoned R1A Single Family Residential District and is located on the south side of Huron River Drive, east of Heft Road. The area affected by this request is approximately 24 acres of property located on Shagbark Lane, Old Oak Trail, Farmbrook Lane, Laurelwood Drive, and Burrowwood Lane, southeast of Cobblestone Circle, containing parcel ID numbers 83114010023000 through 831140109200 and 831140100300. So at this time, do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
I move to open the hearing.
We have motion by Commissioner Jar, supported by Treasurer Bud, to open the public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Do we have any comments from the public concerning this item?
If I may just give a little bit of framework for the public, this is an opportunity for questions from members of the public about this project. The applicant before us tonight will be presenting a couple of comments during the new business items on this topic, and staff will speak during the new business items as well. But as the chair mentioned, this is a request to provide a minor modification to some of the terms of the Planned Residential Development Agreement and Planned Residential Development Plan for the 154 detached single-family unit Cobblestone Creek project, which is east of Heft Road and south of West Huron River Drive, as the chair mentioned. So the proposal specifically is to introduce some new architectural models to the project by MI Homes of Michigan LLC, and to complete the project with some modifications to the requirements around the minimum number of side entry garage units, to introduce some different architecture and to have some leniency on the minimum 30% side entry garage requirement. So that's what this first topic is about tonight. If anybody from the nearby neighborhood or anybody else from the public wants to ask questions or speak to that request, please feel free to step up.
Anyone of the public care to comment on this item? Anyone care to comment? Anyone on Zoom?
Mr. Chair, I see two remote participants on Zoom this evening. I believe I recognize those names to be associated with a different project, and I don't see any hands raised. So if you do have questions on Zoom tonight or comments, please raise your virtual hand or type into the chat. But I don't see that happening for this case.
No public comment.
Through the chair, make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
Motion by Treasurer Bud, support by Commissioner Jar to close the public hearing. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. We are closed the public hearing. Moving forward, new business. Case 23-075, Cobblestone Creek Phase 3 Revision, Special Land Use Review. A request by applicant David Straub of MI Homes of Michigan LLC to amend the Cobblestone Creek Planned Residential Development PRD project to complete the project with a total of 35 or 22.7% of 154 detached single-family home sites having side entry-oriented garages. This will require a general revision to a previously approved planned residential development, which requires special land use review. The site is zoned R1A, Single Family Residential District, and is located on the south side of Huron River Drive, east of Heft Road, containing parcel ID numbers 83-11401, 0023-000 through 83-11401, 0092-000, and 83-11401, 0103-000. This time, do we have a presentation by staff? Director Power.
I'll just make a few brief comments. The request will be reviewed primarily by, or the comments on this request will be given primarily by our township's planning consultant and senior principal planner with McKenna Vidyakrishnan. The request, as I mentioned, requires a amendment to the Plan Residential Development Agreement and Plan, and affiliated with that process, there's also a special land use request. So if it's all right with the planning commissioners, you may opt to take the comments and have the two motions in sequence if you'd like, as long as there's two separate motions on the special land use recommendation and the PRD preliminary plan and agreement. So I believe our planner has comments on both aspects of the request. So perhaps give the first report, and then if we have questions on that, we can go into those, and then we can go into the second report if that's okay with the planning commission. And we also have the applicant here to present and pick up any loose ends. And I will put this is a little bit unusual, but I'll put the picture of the overall plan on the screen on the overhead because I'm having some difficulty projecting, but that might help with the comments.
Thank you, Director Power. Members of the Commission, as Director Power summarized, the request before you is for a PRD amendment to the Cobblestone Creek condominium project. This condominium project was originally approved in 2004 with a total of 258 units, of which 154 were detached single family and the remaining 104 were attached units. Now, the project was never completed, as a result of which some portions of it continue to remain empty. At this time, MI Homes has stepped in with an intent to finish a portion of the condominium which had detached single-family homes. When the original condominium was approved, it did receive special land use approval and PRD site plan approval. Whenever a PRD is amended, it must follow the same process as the original PRD approval itself. The zoning ordinance has specific standards when considering a request for special land use approval. I'll summarize those in brief. The first criteria is, will it promote the use of land in a socially and economically desirable manner for the residents who are close and also for the township as a whole. Now, at this time, the applicant's proposal is a PRD modification only for the detached dwelling portion of the site. The original PRD agreement, which was drafted at the time the ordinance was written, requires that 30% of the units must have side entry garages, which means 46 of the 154 units needed to have side entry garages. Currently, out of the 154, 87 units have been completed, but only 15 of them have side entry garages, which is only 17%. As a result of the remaining 67 units, 31 units need to be side entry garages in order to meet the minimum 30% requirement of the ordinance. Now, the applicant proposes to build 20 side entry units rather than 31, which would result in a gross total of 23% of the units having side entry garages. However, the 20 units would represent 30% of the portion that the applicant is completing. So it's a little confusing. Requirement is 30% of all detached units. We currently have only 17%, as a result of which the percentage of units that need to have side entry in the remaining detached is significantly more than 30. The applicant is saying, I will do 30, which is 21, which is 20 rather than 31, 11 units short for the whole. Now, the Planning Commission discussed this item last year extensively, and the ordinance at this time allows the Planning Commission and the Board of Trustees to grant flexibility from the 30% requirement, provided such amendment is offset by a higher quality of building materials on the facade, recessed front entry garages, architecturally detailed garage doors, and other options that are specifically noted in the ordinance as being reasons based upon which the Planning Commission can grant such deviation. The second criteria is it necessary for public convenience at that location? As was previously summarized, the site is located in an R1A single-family residential zone. It is a partly completed condominium, so it's a good thing the condominium project is being completed and we are having homes built on the remaining portion of it, which already has the roadways and other infrastructure set. Is it compatible with adjacent uses of land? Now, the applicant previously sought and received approval from the Planning Commission for incorporation of 5 additional building elevations. MI Homes did come before you a few months ago to seek that approval. The proposed detached dwelling unit style remains compatible with the existing dwelling unit styles within the rest of the PRD. The next criteria is it so designed, located, and proposed to be operated that public health, safety, and welfare will be protected. Now, the deviation from the 30% side entry requirement is a deviation from the originally approved plan. We believe the design standards intended for the PRDs as a whole will be upheld, provided the applicant does incorporate the standards that the amended ordinance was provided with in order to grant a deviation from the 30% requirement. The Planning Commission discussed in detail that they were amenable to modifying the 30% requirement, but that had to be offset by the applicant putting forth something better in order to make that an even trade-off, so to speak. The next criteria can be adequately served by public utilities and facilities. This PRD amendment does not alter any of the existing utilities or its availability in the area. The amendment is not likely to cause injury to any other property in the area where it is located. The construction of these dwellings does not involve the removal of any trees or alteration of any natural resources. As I mentioned, the roadway network is already set, the lots are laid out. Landscaping for individual units and any remaining landscaping in the area will be installed by the applicant. And the proposed PRD is within the provisions of uses that require special land use approval. It is a valid exercise of the township's police power regulations. Now, the applicant has been working with the township for the past several months to discuss this proposed amendment. And in 2023, as I mentioned, the township had adopted an ordinance amendment that would allow for such flexibility. We find that the proposed PRD amendment does meet the criteria for special land use approval subject to conditions. So it is our recommendation at this time that the Planning Commission recommend to the Township Board of Trustees preliminary amended PRD approval to allow for a total of 23% side entry garages for the detached units in the Cobblestone Creek PRD, subject to the following conditions. The first condition being incorporation of additional brick or stone and recessed front entry garage door and or architectural design garage door or other special design features on the 11 proposed front entry units, which would ensure that the intent of the 30% is still met. As I mentioned, in order to meet the 30%, 31 units would need to be side entry. The applicant is proposing 20. So for the remaining 11, provided those additional details are included, it would meet the intent what the ordinance was trying to achieve. And the second condition would be compliance with all conditions of preliminary PRD amendment approval by the Planning Commission. At this time, the project is before you for a recommendation on the special land use. If the Planning Commission would like, I can go over the PRD site plan also, review letter, so you would be able to ask the applicant your questions, or I can hold it until after this action.
It's okay with me. I don't have a problem.
Okay?
I would rather you go ahead.
Okay, thank you. In that case, I shall proceed to the site plan review letter. The basics of the project have already been summarized, including what the PRD amendment before you tonight is for. The density of the detached units in this original PRD will remain unchanged. All of the basic details required by the zoning ordinance for a site plan have been provided. With regard to stormwater detention and engineering issues, there are no changes proposed to the utilities or the road network. The Wayne County and Township engineering standards have changed significantly in the 20 years since this project was originally approved. We defer to the Township engineer to make a determination if the project still holds on to the regulations under which it was approved, or is it required to be upgraded. With regard to roads and access, it remains consistent with what was on the original PRD plan. The approved plan included 5-foot wide sidewalks along both sides of all streets in the development. Phase 3, which is this portion of the PRD, does not have any sidewalks. The amended plan shows that required sidewalks per the original PRD plan. Now, the applicant will have to install sidewalks on both sides of all streets within the internal roads in compliance with the original ordinance standards. We were just not sure it was clearly shown, so we want to make sure the applicant is aware that sidewalks are required along both sides. Depending upon the Planning Commission and Township Board of Trustees' action, the master deed and the PRD original agreement will need to be amended. And the PRD agreement will also need to be amended to include any additional architectural stipulations the Planning Commission and Board of Trustees may impose. So subsequent to any action being taken, a revised PRD agreement and, if required, master deed also needs to be submitted. There are no changes proposed to the landscaping or any tree removal. And as I previously mentioned, architectural elevations were previously sought for and approved by the Planning Commission. At this time, it is our recommendation that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary amended PRD plan for Cobblestone Creek Woodlands Phase 3, subject to 3 conditions on the PRD site plan: Township engineer and Wayne County approval of the stormwater detention and utilities if required, installation of public sidewalks along both sides of all internal streets in Phase 3 as shown on the PRD plan, and finally, revised PRD agreement noting that 11 of the units with front entry garages will be provided with additional architectural features as specified in Section 5.115B8 to ensure that the intent of the 30% side entry garage standard is still met, even though the requested amendment will result in a gross of 23% side entry garages for all of the detached units in the development. I would be happy to answer any questions or provide any clarifications the Commission might want. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments by the engineer concerning the drainage in the streets?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, Director Power.
Yes, through the chair, yes, because the project is not, that's an important question you just asked, because the project is distinct from the recent condominium amendment that we reviewed for Cobblestone Creek attached condos, because that was a project where you actually had a change in the layout of the overall condominium structure. In this case, we're talking about changing the architecture and the layout of individual units. The unit boundaries are not changing. So we excluded any kind of engineering review or site condominium review, site condominium site plan review for this project. It's strictly for the PRD amendment and PRD agreement and plan amendment. And I'll also call out, while I have the opportunity, there are some items in your packet that may help you navigate this case. The reports you just heard from the planning consultant. There's also a narrative letter from Mr. Straub with MI Homes of Michigan LLC. There's the revised Cobblestone Creek Condos site plan that you see on the screen there. Architectural drawings for the 5 home models that were recently approved by the Planning Commission. A matrix or worksheet provided by the applicant that documents some of the architectural enhancements that are found throughout the project between his units and the first builder, Mr. Bogies, or the main builder in the site, Mr. Bogie. And a proposed language for this second amendment to the PRD agreement for Cobblestone Creek, as well as the original recorded PRD agreement and First Amendment and the public hearing notice for tonight's meeting. So those items are all included in your packet for reference. But at this point, if Mr. Straub, Mr. Chair, if you want to invite Mr. Straub to speak regarding the request, might be an appropriate time to do that.
The applicant, you have a presentation to present to us. Identify yourself for us, please.
My name is David Straub. I'm the Vice President of Land Acquisition for MI Homes Michigan LLC. Oh, perfect. Good evening. I stood before you back in, I believe, both October and December, introducing MI Homes to Van Buren Township and introducing the homes we intend to offer here at Cobblestone Creek. I appreciate the time that you gave me back then and your patience as we quickly assembled our plans and our new acquisition of this property. And I appreciate the approval of the home sites or the homes that we intend to offer. Tonight's request. Tonight's request, we've invested in the balance of the home sites here at the community, a total of 67 home sites. When we endeavored to make this purchase, we had some communications with Mr. Power, and he pointed out the requirement for 30% side entry garages here at the community. There were a few things that came out. Number one, I'm going to bear with me here as I take you through some thoughts on this. This community was originally the PRD approved back in 2004. So this year we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Cobblestone Creek. There was a PRD, the PRD agreement was executed in April of 2005. And there was an amendment in 2023, and I believe the amendment Mr. Power alluded to was the amendment for the condominiums, the 52 units that changed by Infinity Homes. As I stated previously, I met with you folks back in October and again in December to get this approved. But something that really stands out to me is the longevity of the development and the fact that the development's celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. So MI Homes, we didn't build the previous homes. We've started our model home out there now. We have foundations going in for our first two production homes. So I think of the term that comes to mind is, and forgive me because I don't know if it's appropriate, but the term that comes to mind is the sins of our forefathers. So the sins of our forefathers out there were simply that we're having the conversation today because only 17%, total of 15 units in the earlier phases of the development included side entry garages. As we talked about back in October and December again, I think I alluded to the fact that I'd be standing in front of you sometime early this year to discuss our intent or our hope to reduce the number of side entry garages required at the community. This illustration is, as crude as it is with my coloring skills, represents in green the side entry garages that are currently built. There's a total of 15, including one in phase 3. And the orange represents the home sites that we've earmarked for the balance of phase 3. This is a good starting point for us and is a commitment from us to build 20 side entry garages there. With the exception of spec homes we would anticipate that the buying public would start to, as they pick home sites to build on, would start to dictate where those side entry garages would be. But we thought at very least we'd have this as a starting point to represent what we would build. So you can see that in the early phase that was partially built, starting in 2006, which would be to the left of the site plan that's in front of you, there was a fair number of side entry garages there. In the most recent phase that was built out over the last, say, 15 years, only 2 home sites were side entry. So we realize that this is a requirement. We realize that it is important for us to adhere to the township ordinance, but we are asking for that reduction. And we're hopeful that the Planning Commission sees this as a reasonable request to build out the balance of the phase, which is 30% of the remaining home sites to be side entry garages. This is just my apologies for black and white. We are still working on our marketing materials for when we open for sale later this spring. This is a representation of what the side entry garages would look like. They are 2-car side entry garages. We don't intend to build 3-car. Three-car side entry garage has a tendency to project forward, and we don't intend to build 3-car side entry garages here. I've also included on there, you see the pretty pictures, just to kind of give you an idea. I'm sure you've all driven through multiple communities that have side entry garages and front entry garages, but just to kind of give you a flavor of what a side entry with 3-car side entry garages or even 2-car, you have a tendency driving down the street to see the garage faces looking at you instead of facing the street. I wanted to include that as just kind of a representation of what happens in real life. The requirement, the conditional requirement for the 11 homes that we haven't committed to for side entry garages, the conditional requirement for recessed garage faces, enhanced garage doors, and enhanced brick or other enhancements on the elevation is a little bit of a hardship for us. We are hoping that our conscientious effort to include and commit to 30% of the remaining home sites is satisfactory enough for the Planning Commission, and we're hopeful that ultimately is the decision you make, and are in a position to push that forward to the Township Board. So with that being said, I'm here for any questions or comments you might have, and again, we're excited to be part of the township and excited that our homes are under construction now.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments?
Through the chair.
Yes.
So this is a question probably more for staff. So last night, the Jewett Drainage District, they had a Board of Determination hearing for concerns with flooding in that district. These homes would be built in that area. The Board of Determination did approve 3-0 to move forward, and we have Mr. Akers here who could maybe step in and help clarify. Basically, my question is, if they move forward with creating a special assessment district in this area, would these homes that are yet to be built but are in that area be included or charged? Or is that something where, like, just keep it separate until it's all official?
I would maybe defer to our municipal services director, who was kind enough to attend tonight and also attended that meeting last night. But that's a very good question. I know these cobblestone developments have been affected by being on the upstream end of the Jewett Drain. And so maybe Director Akers could weigh in on that.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. For a point of clarification, was the question related to if they were going to be charged for the special assessment?
Yeah, so these homes haven't been built yet. If they get built, but they are in that district, would they be included because that district was passed before these were built?
My understanding is they would be included in the assessment. I know the county drain office has a formula for how they determine what those assessments are and how they spread the cost of the improvement amongst the entire drainage district. And I know a lot of it ties into land area. I'm not sure if they use impervious surface as a measure or not, but every property within the district would be assessed for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, anybody else? Questions, comments?
Through the chair, I just have a question for the applicant. In the packet, the site plan that you included, or that was included in the packet, I'm just doing rough math, just because I like numbers to be even. You have 71 future lots on this site plan for Phase 3. The report from staff says 67. So when I do the 23% of the future build, I'm coming up with 21 homes, you have 20. I just want to make sure that it all matches. Is it 67 or is it 71?
So MI Homes has 67 homes to build in
Okay.
this remaining phase.
So this site plan just probably needs to be updated then.
Um,
Because even one of the legends says, proposed 21 side entry garage units per the 2024 amended PRD. So, I just want to make sure that if it's 20, if it's 21, if it's 71, if it's 67.
So there's currently one home site in Phase 3 that is a side entry garage. It's completed and occupied.
Oh, okay.
So there's 2 homes that are occupied. So there's a total of 69 home sites in Phase 3. One's occupied, and I believe one's for sale. So there's one home that's side entry garage, and again, MI Homes is committing to 67 home sites there, and are asking for 20 side entry garages for the balance of homes that we intend to build.
Chair, I guess, to help respond to that as well. I'm sorry, Mr. Strub, did you say there were 69 units in Phase 3 that you're aware of? Because that's the number that I was familiar with, and there may have been some adjustments to the delineation of those phase boundaries over the years, if there's a reference to
And that's
71
probably just what
in
it
the
is. I
plan.
just want to make sure that if the packet, it's just all consistent throughout.
Yeah, so there's total
I mean,
of, total of 69. In these homes, the civil improvements for these homes were done back, I believe, earlier in '23.
Okay.
And were a couple of the first couple of home sites were built by Mr. Boji, is that
Correct.
correct? Yep, so that explains the 67. So we'll work to make sure those revisions to the counts are on the amended site plan as part of the final plan submittal.
That one's not.
Just for clarification, did I just hear that in Phase 3, there are already some houses built? That's the discrepancy, right?
Yeah.
That's the discrepancy.
Yep. Okay, cool.
Correct, but the staff's report still says of the remaining 67. So that's, I'm still 2 off.
Those would be.
You're saying you don't have,
Unbuilt, it says 67 units, the remaining 67 units.
you have 2 lots, there's 2 lots that you're not responsible for?
First 2 lots that were built by another building company, and there's 67 home sites that we're responsible for. The remaining 67 home sites in the community.
So I think Mr. Krill's concern is the map that is seen up there that actually has got 71 lots seen on it. If 2 are built, 67 are vacant, that is 69. Where are the remaining 2? I believe there were some adjustments made to that, so that probably needs to be
Yeah, and
updated.
if any of this is gonna be included to the township board for approval of a PRD, I just wanna make sure that it all works out. I just don't want it to be, 20 or 21, I don't think it's gonna affect our decision. I just want it to be
On paper.
on, there you go, on paper. So, that's all the question I had. Thanks.
Commissioner Jar.
Mr. Chair, I think I heard Mr. Straub indicate that he felt that putting in the higher quality building materials or possibly changing the front entry garages, architecturally detailed garage doors was, did I hear him correctly say he felt it was maybe a hardship and he was looking for us to not make that part of the condition?
That's what I understood. Is that?
Correct.
My comment on that is, my understanding is we don't have the flexibility to do that. The ordinance, the justification for moving forward with this recommendation and request is that the current set of ordinances allow us to do it if and only if the percentage ratio is offset by higher quality building materials on the facade, recessed front entry garages, that sort of thing. I believe that's the case, and that we simply can't move forward without putting that as a condition. Is that true?
I believe the way the ordinance is drafted, you can grant a deviation if
If,
certain standards are met, not just grant a deviation with no compensation.
Understood.
Okay.
and so I, Mr. Chair, I'd also ask the applicant, do you understand and therefore accept the rest of the conditions that are put forth in the letters written by our consultant, including the sidewalks? You do? Okay, I wanted clarification. Thank you. I don't think I have any more questions, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? Okay, do we have anyone from the public that would like to make a comment concerning this? Anyone from the public have any comments? On Zoom, Director Power?
I do not see any comments on Zoom.
You. With no public comment, do we have a motion or concern that we want to deal with as far as the Planning Commission is concerned? And this, we remember, is two separate motions.
Mr. Chair, under item number 1, case 23075, Cobblestone Creek Phase 3 revision, the special land use review, I move to recommend to the Township Board that they grant the applicant, David Straub of MI Homes of Michigan, LLC, the special land use approval to permit a general revision to the previously approved planned residential development at the site located as described in the agenda item, based on the analysis and subject to the conditions in the McKenna letter dated 17 January 2024 and the letter of staff dated 22 February 2024. I don't believe that the McKenna letter dated 18 January 2024 applies to this motion.
No, it doesn't.
Submitted for your consideration.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jar, supported by Commissioner Creel. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Bernie Grant,
Yes.
Sherry Budd, Peter Creel,
Yes.
Jackson Paul,
Yes.
Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Brian Cullen.
Yes. With that, motion carries. Now we have as well, item number 2, case 23075, Cobblestone Creek Phase 3 revision, preliminary amended PRD plan review. And this again is a request by the applicant David Straub of MI Homes of Michigan LLC to amend the Cobblestone Creek Planned Residential Development PRD project to complete the project with a total of 35 of the 154 detached single-family home sites having side entry oriented garages. This will require a general revision to the previously approved planned residential development PRD, which requires a preliminary and final revision to the PRD plan and agreement. The site is zoned R1A, single-family residential district, and is located on the south side of Huron River Drive, east of Heff, containing the parcel ID numbers as stated in the agenda and previously for the special land use. We have already had the presentation by the staff and the applicant. Do we have any discussion from the Planning Commission? Seeing none, do we have any public comment concerning?
I do not see any comments on Zoom.
Okay, with that, do we have any action we want to take as far as the commission is concerned?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Jar.
with regard to item number 2, case 23075, Cobblestone Creek Phase 3 revision preliminary amended PRD plan review, I move to recommend to the Township Board that they grant the applicant David Straub, MI Homes of Michigan LLC, the preliminary PRD plan and agreement to complete the project with a total of 35 of 154 detached single-family home sites having side entry-oriented garages at the site located, again, as described in the agenda item. This being based on the analysis and subject to the conditions that were detailed in the McKenna letter dated 18 January 2024 and the letter of staff dated 22 February 2024. Again, submitted for support. Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jar, supported by Commissioner Pohl. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Peter Creel? Yes. Bernie Grant? Yes. Sherry Budd? Jackson Paul? Jeff Jar? Yes. Brian Cullen?
Yes. Seeing that, motion carries. Moving on, item number 3. Thank you. You have your approval. Item number 3, 24-003, Phantom Fireworks, Lakewood site, temporary land use. We're pushing 4th of July.
It's that time.
Yes. The applicant, Phantom Fireworks, is requesting a temporary land use permit to conduct a temporary outdoor fireworks tent sale. The location is at 2095 Rosenville Road, which is in the Lakewood Shopping Plaza parking lot on the east side of Rosenville Road and on the south side of I-94 Service Drive. This activity is proposed from June 21 to July 4th, 2024. Do we have a presentation from the township staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your patience with my maneuvering here. I would like to present some findings on the request for Phantom of Michigan Incorporated for their proposed firework tent location at the Lakewood site, which is at 2095 Rossonville Road, from June 21st through July 4th, from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. maximum hours. Under state law, specifically Section 7 of Michigan PA 256 of 2011, local units of government that are limited in their ability to regulate the sale of fireworks within their communities. The Michigan Attorney General has issued an opinion on this section of the act, which states that so long as local ordinance does not prohibit fireworks vendors from undertaking their commercial operations in any way that other vendors may undertake their operations, the ordinance is not preempted by the act. And so we have some local zoning ordinance regulations specific to temporary land uses that we facilitate the reviews for these fireworks tents through. And Mr. Tapper is here as the first applicant for this year of what's usually 3 or so sites in the township between 2 vendors. All of the comments in this report will be stemming from section 7.120 of the township zoning ordinance specific to temporary land uses. The first criterion that I'd like to discuss is the adequacy of parking and access. The site has 877 public parking spaces, 31 of which are handicap reserved or barrier free. The tent, portable storage container, and surrounding space will only use approximately 30 parking spaces according to the application materials. The rest of the site, which has pretty high vacancy, will be able to be accommodated with that parking. The site has existing drainage. The site is zoned commercially, and the proposed use is compatible with the nearby retail uses in the shopping center. This, with respect to the size, height, and construction of the proposed buildings, the tent and portable storage container are temporary in nature, and tent sales regularly take place in parking lots like this, and so no impacts are expected to the surrounding sites. Sorry. I do recommend that the project description showing the 40 by 40 tent, 8 by 40 storage unit and generator For our records, if we could get, Mr. Tapper, if you could just show those on a scaled-up version of that plan, and I can help you to create a base map for it. But this, basically, the activities will be occurring according to the plan in this general portion of the site. So just having a more scaled-up version of that plan would be helpful for our records. So that's my one of my conditions in my site plan report. Relatedly, the proposed use that's shown on Exhibit A, that is the main drawing that was submitted with this project, is in the C1 zoning district. And the one item to clarify here is that there is a required 15-yard side setback from that west property line in the C1 district, so that must be maintained. Supply its own electrical generation, and the electrical hookup will be inspected to ensure compliance with the NFPA. I'm sorry for the view on the screen here. Phantom will be responsible for the trash disposal and site cleanup in relation to their agreement with the Lakewood Shopping Center. Due to the short nature of the customer shopping at this tent, no sanitary facilities will be provided. The hours of operation are proposed to be from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. We have not had complaints with those hours in years past. Act 256 does preempt a previous local ordinance that we had in place that capped the time limit at 9 p.m., but we have not had issues with the 10 p.m. time limit, so that should not be a problem. Outdoor light and signs, there is a 32 square foot or 8x4 banner sign that's proposed for this tent. A current consumer fireworks retail facility non-permanent license must be provided by the applicant prior to the establishment. And the fire marshal is also, or deputy fire chief is also reviewing this case separately and has provided comments of his review that I will file with this application. We will have an inspection performed at the time the tent is installed. With respect to proposed noise, odor, dust, and glare, the proposed use should not increase those activities or those impacts. With respect to fire lanes, fire protection, and security, the fire marshal shall review the application as I mentioned, and he has provided his letter of review. One of the things that we look for with respect to fire protection and life safety is that there are 3 fire extinguishers and 3 fire exits on the plan for the tent, which have been provided with this application. And my last set of comments is first, with respect to off-site impacts of traffic volumes, the roads in the vicinity of this site being the North 94 Service Drive and the Rawsonville Road, they're more than adequate to handle the flow of traffic to the facility. The property owner will be responsible for ensuring the site is returned to its pre-sale condition, which relates to the comment about bonds. And my last comment is that there are no additional concerns regarding the impacts to public health, safety, and welfare with the proposed use. So my recommendation is a conditional recommendation of approval. The use has had, this will be the 12th year that Phantom has operated at this location without any issues. So the recommendation is for conditional approval. I would request a more detailed plan on that larger scale aerial photo. The use must maintain a minimum 75-foot front yard setback and 15-foot side yard setback. And just to verify, everything that comes through needs to have Van Buren Township as a municipality. It's kind of a standard comment for all applications. So those are the recommended conditions of approval. With that, Mr. Tapper is here. I'm sure he'd be happy to speak to his project. I'm glad to answer any questions you have for me as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tapper.
Hi, how you doing? Okay, again, I'm Richard Tapper. I'm the Regional State Manager for Phantom Fireworks, and it was 70 degrees yesterday, so it's almost like summertime. But again, like Dan said, this is our 12th season being here at the plaza there. The only difference is this season, we've moved our tent up front by the Kmart old nursery, except being at the back. Last year, we had someone try breaking in the storage unit. They didn't get in, but they tried cutting off a couple of locks we had. So we decided to bring it up front since there's a lot of businesses not in the plaza anymore. The state license, I think you already have a copy of that, Dan.
Yes.
Yep, that's in the package. If you email me a plot plan, I'll be glad, to draw in exactly where it is. If you ever go out to that area, it's already marked off in orange paint, so you can see exactly where the tent's gonna be. It has corners there, so you know where the tent and storage unit will be placed. Otherwise, like I said, we have no problems where hold-up robberies or anything else in the 12 years. And again, we want to come back every year to this location, so that's why the area is always cleaned up every season. We don't have problems.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, comments, questions for Mr. Tapper or staff?
Mr. Chair? I do agree,
Commissioner Jar?
Little sketch showing the better site plan would be a requirement.
Yeah, if Dan will, if he email it, and I'll just draw it in.
And if it works out this year, you can bring it back next year.
Well, it should work out.
I noticed that the tent has all of the fire extinguishers called out on it again. So that's a common question too that's been addressed. So.
Go ahead.
Now, what's the setback? 15 feet from the street, you said? Or this?
It's a little bit irregular because that's actually it's technically a side yard where
Right.
you have the service drive next to you, so 15 feet, yes.
That's my question. Power, you say 75-foot front yard setback. Is that from where the tent is located? Because I'm familiar with that area because I drive by it all the time now because of Denton Bridge. But it doesn't seem like there's a lot of room on that side. I call it the side, you call it the front. By Kmart, it just doesn't, I mean, is the ordinance 75 foot to the sidewalk?
It's 75 feet to the property line on the front property line, which is kind of a function of where the front of the building face is in relation to the road. It's kind of an
So
angled
it's 75
site.
foot towards the restaurant there.
Yeah, I could probably, if we put that aerial up, we could probably talk through that if we want to.
So to the north.
I got a copy here.
Yeah, I might try to show.
If it works, I'm just curious. It's more than anything. I mean, I'm sure you've done the.
To get a better, broader view of the site for this. Yeah, actually, that drawing that you have is probably good to show the interpretation. And again, it's kind of a unusually laid out site, but essentially you're looking at a front yard is going to be anything between the front face of a building and the front lot line, which is essentially where that right-of-way meets the site. And so anything that's on the side of the building in this area would be considered a side yard. Anything basically in these zones would be considered rear yard, if that makes sense.
So it's the 15 foot to the property line to the west. Okay.
Right, so it's 15 feet from there to here.
Yeah, there's a property boundary outside of the parking area that we can establish.
I think it's all grass there. Before you even get to the parking lot, there's at least 15 feet of grass.
Yeah, because I
From
was
the
thinking
road.
that was the front, but. No, we're good. Thank you.
A better drawing would be good.
Okay.
Help us understand.
There is a reinterpretation, hopefully. If there's anything, I'll update the planning commission if we get more on, in depth on that larger scale drawing and there's a clarification we need to make or an adjustment.
See 'em there, so, good.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Jar?
I have a question for Director Power. You mentioned that the fire department had written a letter. I didn't see it in the packet.
Yes, that was a submittal I did not get into the packet. I apologize. It came a little bit later, which the fire marshal has reviewed and submitted to the plans that were submitted to the office, which I submitted not until February 22nd. He found that the application and site plan is compliant with the Van Buren Township adopted fire code as well as state regulations for fireworks sales. The fire department will conduct an on-site inspection to field verify compliance with the adopted fire code, the state of Michigan will conduct the required inspection per license requirements from the state. So no objections from his end.
A verbatim read-in? Thank you. February 22nd?
That was dated February 22nd, yes.
Thank you.
You're gonna ask about the 21st and 22nd?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you. Through the chair. On the application, it says the dates of the event are June 22nd through July 4th. And in all the reports, and it says the 21st. So I just want to clarify if it's Friday or Saturday.
Friday, June 21st, yeah.
So we just need the application needs to be updated then to reflect the 21st.
Where does it say that, Peter?
On the,
Commissioner?
right here.
Dates of event. Flip.
I'm flipping.
No, back.
I'm sorry.
Dates of event. Dates of event.
Oh, I do say, yeah. Good catch. Good catch.
Today, I guess. I don't know. Thank you.
Any other comments? Do we have anything from the public? Anybody in the public wish to have a comment? Anybody speaking on Zoom?
Comments on Zoom.
Okay, then, Planning Commission, do we have any action on this item?
Chair?
Commissioner, please.
All right. For, excuse me, Chair, for case 24-003, Phantom Fireworks at the Lakewood site, I move to grant temporary land use to Phantom Fireworks to conduct a temporary outdoor fireworks tent sale located at 2095 Rawsonville Road, located in the Lakewood Shopping Plaza. Parking lot on the east side of Rawsonville Road and on the south side of I-94 South Service Drive. This activity is proposed from June 21st through July 4th. And also subject to the Van Buren Charter Township letter dated February 22nd, 2024, and the fire marshal letter dated February 22nd as read here at the meeting.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Grant, support by Commissioner Jar. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Peter Creel. Jackson Paul,
Yes.
Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Brian Cullen.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And we look forward to seeing you. We know that it will be nice weather. Okay, moving ahead. Item number 4, case 24011, Gilbert Homes, Bell Point Estates, site plan amendment. The applicant, Gilbert Homes, is requesting an amendment to the approved Bell Point Estates subdivision site plan for a revised single-family architectural elevation. The unfinished Bell Point Estates subdivision is subject of the request. The development is located on the east side of Belleville Road, north of Ecorse Road. Do we have I believe, have a presentation by the township staff. Director Power.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have Brad Gilbert here with us tonight, and I will go over the presentation for his proposed additional architectural model for the Bell Point Estates subdivision. I will put an image of the unit on the screen. Mr. Gilbert came before the Planning Commission in September of 2023 to construct his home models in an established subdivision called Bell Point Estates, or actually it's a site condominium, often called a subdivision, that's north of Ecorse Road, east of Belleville Road in the township here. And this is the addition of one additional model on an additional lot in that development, which is lot 79. And so the applicant, Gilbert Homes Incorporated, is proposing on behalf of the landowner, Andre Dixon, to amend the Bell Point Estates site condominium site plan to introduce one new architectural elevation in the subdivision. Bell Point Estates consists of one phase of single-family home sites. And again, this is Unit 79 or 7133 Bell Point Drive that the proposed elevation will be constructed on. The proposed plan is subject to the standards of the Township Zoning Ordinance, specifically Section 5.115, which addresses architectural details in subdivisions and site condominiums. The plans are also governed by a master deed and bylaws, which are administered by the Bell Point Estates Subdivision Homeowners Association. I will go over some findings in my report briefly to address how the application responds to these requirements. The first is that the site plan, with respect to the site plan, the properties are zoned R1B, single-family residential. The homes are subject to a 30-foot front yard, 10-foot single, and 25-foot combined side yard between their two side yards, and a 35-foot rear yard setback. This lot has a width of 80 feet and a depth of 125 feet. The proposed model dimensions are 40 by 44, and so the unit or lot will have ample area to accommodate that. The R1B zoning district requires a floor area of 1,500 square feet, and this model will be 2,068 square feet, so this requirement will be met. The facade elevations require substantial difference to be established with respect to the neighboring lots on three sides, the neighboring three lots within the same side of the street as the proposed parcel, as well as three lots across the street. The individual building site proposed by the applicant is sufficiently separated so as to not cause concern that the construction of the same model at the sites throughout the development will be in violation of the requirement. Then Mr. Gilbert may be able to clarify. I had reference to three lots in my report. There's actually just one lot that I believe is under consideration for this model. Under Section 5.115B7C of the Van Buren Township Zoning Ordinance, at least 50% of the total wall area of residential structures shall be finished with brick or stone. The front of this model meets that requirement, and staff will work with the applicant to make sure the other facades will meet this. I do note, however, that the Bell Point Estates subdivision was approved without their units being 50% or greater brick. And so that factors into this application. For consistency with the subdivision, it may be appropriate to consider 50% brick on the front and not necessarily on the sides or rear like the other units in the subdivision. At least 30% of the single-family detached units in the subdivision must have side entry-oriented garages. This unit was not designated as a side entry garage in the original layout and would not accommodate one, so it will not be proposed as such. I do recommend that the Planning Commission can approve this amendment to the Bell Point Estates site condominium for this model to be built by Gilbert Homes, with the one condition that the proposed model is subject to approval by the Bell Point Estates Homeowners Association, and that approval has been obtained by the HOA president, Jason Newbound, in an email, which was submitted later, and I will forward if the Planning Commission would like to see that as well. I do note one discrepancy on the application as well that will have to be corrected for the file, which is that there's a reference to the Walden Woods subdivision on that application form. That'll just have to be changed to say Bell Point Estates. I am happy to answer any questions, and I'm sure Mr. Gilbert would be as well.
Thank you, Director Power. By the applicant, would you like to address us?
Good evening, everyone. So I don't have too much to add in addition to what Director Power said, but I...
Could you identify yourself for us, please?
I'm sorry for that. My name is Brad Gilbert. I work with Gilbert Homes. We've been building homes in Van Buren Township for almost 2 decades. Not me personally, but the company has. We're building in Arlene Arbors, and we've also done work in Townsend Park and Country Walk. And we do have some lots in the future that will be going in Bell Point Woods. Okay. I think Dan is going to put some slides up so you can see that picture more clearly of what the house will look like. This is a house plan that we have previously built in those three aforementioned communities, Townsend Park, Country Walk, and Arlene Arbors. So this commission has seen that elevation before, and we have built this same plan multiple times in the sub with success, and it seems to be a popular plan. This is a different plan than the other plans that we're going to be building in Bell Point Woods. It's similar size, similar features, so it'll still fit in with the neighborhood, but it's just a little bit of a different floor plan, different layout. Oh, thank you. Just tap it to go to the next one. Got it. Okay. So here is a slightly angled version of what the house will look like when it's completed. And the next thing I'll point out, this is a layout of the subdivision. Got Belleville Road is there on the left side, and Ecorse Road is on the south side. The three blue dots are the home sites which this commission has already seen plans for and approved. The orange dot is the one that we're talking about today. So as you can see, it's 2 parcels over from one of our other sites, and that is why I got some photos of the houses around it, just to show that there is sufficient architectural differences between the proposed unit on the right side in the middle and the existing units. And then I've also put in a picture of here. That is the proposed, or that is the already approved elevation on the home site 2 parcels away. And that's all I have for you guys. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Commissioners, comments?
Looks nice to me.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, do we have any action then by the commission?
Mr. Chair, in the
Commissioner Jur.
item number 4, case 24-011, Gilbert Homes, Bell Point Estates Site Plan Amendment. I move to grant the applicant Gilbert Homes on behalf of landowner Andre Dixon a site plan amendment for the proposed revised single-family architectural elevation at the site located as described in the agenda item. Based on the analysis and subject to the conditions detailed in the letter of staff dated 22 February 2024, noting the change to the site location on the application that staff will address. Submitted for support.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jar, supported by Commissioner Grant. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call, please?
Jackson Paul? Peter Creel? Bernie Grant?
Yes.
Sherry Budd? Jeff Jar? Brian Cullen?
Yes. You have your approval. Go ahead. You're welcome. Okay, moving ahead. Item number 5. Woodland excuse me. Case 23-046, Woodland Meadows RNG Expansion Project, Preliminary Site Plan. A request by Kyle Robbins of Maresco on behalf of Waste Management of Michigan Incorporated to construct the methane gas recovery plant. The applicant seeks to construct a facility that will receive landfill gas from the landfill, which will be processed into high BTU renewable natural gas and delivered to the Detroit Edison Gas DTE remote metering station for injection into a natural gas pipeline. The facility and accessory site improvements will include a 12,652 square foot compressor building, a 2,754 square foot electrical building, compressors, tanks, process vessels, flares, process coolers, and wastewater treatment. The site is a 5.41 acre lease parcel on the west side of Hannon Road, north of Ecorse Road. The parcel includes portions of parcels with ID 83003990003702, which addressed at 39670 Ecorse Road, and 83004990012000, addressed 6724 Hannon Road. The site is zoned C1 General Business District. We have a presentation by Township Staff, Director Power.
Thank you, planning commissioners, and thank you everybody who's been able to stay through tonight's agenda. This is the last formal item on tonight's agenda. I would like to give an overall summary of the project and a little bit of the historical context, and just mention some of the references that are in the Planning Commission's packet that may help them in this review, and then we'll turn the review comments over to our reviewing staff before hearing a little bit from my readout of the fire marshal's comments and then hearing from the applicant. So just this is kind of an overall site plan view of the proposed facility, but backing up one step, a little bit of site context. This is on the east end of the Woodland Meadows landfill site, the Phase 2 expansion area, and you'll hear from the planning consultant more about the zoning of the site. It is zone C1, and this is the location north of Ecorse Road on the on the west side of Hannon Road, excuse me. The proposed facility includes improvements that were mentioned by the chair. It's on a roughly 5.4 acre parcel. There's some history that's included in this report relative to the landfill site. There are a series of host community agreements over the life of the landfill that encompass this request. And the host community agreement that was executed in 1990 references a statute under which the landfill was authorized under. Those rules became part of Part 115 of Public Act 451 of 1994, which is the state's natural resources main statute. There's a paragraph in the original host community agreement that specifies that the waste management must submit a preliminary site plan to the Planning Commission, which includes certain provisions. And the agreement goes on to state that except as matters that are within the jurisdiction of the state landfills standards, the applicant is required to obtain site plan approval. There are certain items that had to be included with anything that is proposed on the site, on the landfill site, including the location of all buildings or structures, either existing or to be constructed, all ingress, egress, access roads, and other points of entrance or departure from the subject properties, the location and cross-section of all berms, visual obscurations and plantings, utilities including water, sewer, electrical, and gas, and a preliminary drainage plan showing site retention or storm runoff. Those were all included in this submittal along with all the other requirements of a site plan review process. In the Fifth Amendment of the host community agreement, which was executed on January 10th of 2018, that should say 2018, it was not the year 201. But within the Fifth Amendment, the proposed facility is clarified as a permitted use where it is proposed. So that's key to how this is part of your purview tonight. It's a permitted use in this portion of the overall site. And so the Planning Commission will follow a standard site plan review process at this meeting to review the merits of the request in compliance with the zoning ordinance, the sections A through E that I previously referenced in terms of the things that were specified as being required to be presented in the host community agreement. And the applicant will follow a standard process. They've submitted an application. There's been an internal staff review meeting. There's been extensive internal staff discussions with the applicant for making sure the site plan meets standards of preliminary site plan approval conditionally. And now you're here tonight to review preliminary site plan before this goes on to potential engineering review by the township engineers, Wayne County, and other agencies if necessary, followed by final site plan review by the Planning Commission. The project includes an application form, a description of the facility provided by the applicant dated November 9th, a boundary survey dated May 16th of 23. The digital submittal that you have includes 38 pages of civil and architectural plans dated November 2023, as well as revised sheets to demonstrate a proposed sound barrier wall. And both of those sets of submittals are included in hard copy. There are also some other digital submittals, including the photo rendering of a proposed gate, berm, and sound barrier wall across the frontage, an example of an existing sound barrier wall at a facility in Canton Township, a 10-page document with details of that example sound barrier wall, noise and vibration assessment that was revised, dated December 13th of 2024, and then further revised, and then a 26-page lighting specification package. So just to kind of give some perspective of what you have to assist you with your review tonight. And I can toggle to any images that are helpful as we go over these reports. Here's an image of what the overall facility may look like in its overall form with raw form with the buildings and the structures. But in addition to that, there's extensive berming and landscaping that you can see on this plan, a section view of the berm that I've highlighted, and a rendering of kind of the frontage of the property that's been provided by the applicant, as well as, no, I think that's the last image I have in here, but I'm glad to reference any of these, but I don't want to go any further without hearing a more in-depth analysis from our principal planner and then our township engineer, and then I'll speak to the fire marshal's comments as well. So go ahead, Vidya. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Power, members of the commission. This is a pretty exhaustive, detailed review, so I will try to cover all the comments without reading out every single line in my letter. So as Director Power summarized, the request is to construct a gas recovery facility at the Woodland Meadows landfill. Now, the landfill is in an unusual situation of being a split-zoned parcel. Now, the parcel is heavy industrial M2 to the north, and it is C1 general business to the south. Now, the proposed RNG gas recovery facility is located in the C1 portion of the parcel. Solid waste facilities such as the landfill and this gas recovery facility are typically not permitted in a C1, the general business district. However, this site was formerly a golf course, which was then converted to a landfill use and is governed by a host community agreement that was executed with Van Buren Township in 1990. And since then, the host community agreement is what governs the use of the parcel rather than the underlying zoning for the use purposes. That said, the site still has to comply with the requirements of the zoning ordinance for standards for solid waste facilities, which are in addition to any requirements that might be listed in the host community agreement itself. The applicant has been working on the site plan for the past several months with the township. And at this time, the site plan that is presented before you has all of the details that are basically required. The one correction point I did want to note is, when I did the review, I believe I saw the legal description describe the lease area as a 4.14 acre parcel. I do see on the agenda it is listed as a 5.41 acre parcel. So that's a discrepancy. If Mr. Robbins could just clarify when you step up here, what is the exact acreage of the lease parcel? That would be helpful. It does not alter any portion of the review, but I just want the numbers to be consistent. With regard to the dimensional requirements, all of the proposed structures on the site, which include a compressor building, substation, electrical building, condensate treatment building, all of those comply with the setback requirements for the C1 district, and they also comply with the maximum permitted height limit of 40 feet for the C1 district. In addition to that, the site also has numerous pieces of equipment. Most of the equipment is compliant with the 40-foot height requirement, but there are two process vessels, one of which is 40 feet 6.5 inches and one which is 53 feet tall. Based on the zoning ordinance, the height limitation is typically subjected to structures, which is walls and a roof, not for equipment. If the Planning Commission recollects, we visited this situation when we reviewed the hedge frame for the DDE Morton substation. That was classified as equipment, not necessarily a structure. So at this time, what the applicant is proposing on the site is compliant with the ordinance standards for dimensional standards. There is a slight discrepancy between sheet E 6.01 and site plan sheet 4. Some of the equipment is not shown consistently on both sheets, and every sheet needs to be matched where the equipment is located. With regard to access, there is a single access point shown off Hannon Road. The access drive into the site will be paved, as will the east section of the loop with the few parking spaces that are to be provided. The remaining portion of the loop around the entire facility is to be constructed of gravel, and this has been reviewed by the fire marshal before. However, we do defer to the fire marshal to make a final call on whether gravel is an acceptable surface for that portion of the site. The site already has an existing 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk along its Hannon Road frontage, and the applicant has clarified that any of the sidewalk slabs that are either damaged or in need of repair will be repaired and replaced as required. A facility such as this does not have a standard parking requirement in the zoning ordinance. It is not a regularly highly staffed facility. The applicant has noted that there'll be 1 or 2 operators on the site daily, 1 supervisor on site weekly, and additional maintenance staff on a monthly basis. So for that reason, the applicant has provided approximately 4 parking spaces. You can see on the southeast corner of the site, and the requirement was that all parking spaces must be paved, which they have provided. When parking is provided, it is important that one space must be ADA compliant to meet with the federal regulations. As such, there is an ADA accessible space that is shown. What is unclear is whether the space is at a grade or if there is a ramp providing access to the sidewalk and therefore the building that is located. That clarification is required. The ordinance has extensive landscaping and screening requirements for all uses, and the standards for the C1 district were applied to this site too. And our commercial districts have some of the most stringent and detailed landscaping requirements. With regard to right-of-way landscaping, the proposed site landscape plan that's on the screen in front of you does meet all of the standards required for right-of-way landscaping. The little parking area that is shown does meet the ordinance standards, as does the interior parking lot area. One of the most important considerations in landscaping was the greenbelt buffering. Now, our ordinance has specific requirements for buffering when one zoning district parcel abuts another zoning district parcel. We are in an unusual situation where this is a C1 portion that abuts the larger landfill to the west, portions of which are C1, and it abuts M2, which is also actually a landfill. At this point of time, the required buffer has been provided on 3 sides, along with the required planting on the east, south, and north sides. The applicant is asking the Planning Commission for an exemption from providing a greenbelt on the west side of the site. The west side abuts the landfill itself. A greenbelt is really going to serve no purpose at all. The viability of those trees will also be questionable when they are sandwiched between a gravel drive, whole bunch of equipment, and a landfill behind it. So we support the applicant's request for waiving the greenbelt on the west side of this leased parcel. With regard to open space landscaping, the standards that are required by the ordinance has been met by the landscaping that they are installing. A tree removal permit is required if any trees 5 inches or greater are going to be removed from the site. The applicant is removing a few trees. The replacement ratio depends on the replacement size. However, the applicant is proposing a 1:1 replacement ratio, which meets or exceeds the ordinance requirements, which we believe is acceptable considering the intensity of the use. Now, all mechanical equipment and other similar transformers or any incidental equipment to the building is required to be screened or enclosed from view of the public rights of way. Now, there is a berm proposed along the frontage of the site, and this is a significantly wide berm that is actually backed by a retaining wall on which it rests. The intent behind designing a berm like this is not just to provide visual relief when it's planted with trees, it's also to provide for some amount of noise deadening and sound barrier from any sound that might be generated by the equipment. In addition to that, based upon our extensive discussions with the applicant is providing a mechanical equipment screen that is shown on your screen. If you would see this stretch that is shown in solid black, this is the only portion, these are all equipment. So that is the only portion of the equipment that would actually be seen when you're entering the site. Rest all of the areas are buffered by landscaping and the berm. In order to provide adequate screening, the applicant was asked to build a mechanical equipment screen wall which matches what is in your packet as what they have built at their Canton facility. It's got the appearance of a cast stone wall from the outside, but the color is in a manner that will make it blend against the background building wall color itself. So between the landscape berm that is proposed in front, the staggered trees that are required, and the mechanical equipment screening, the applicant is trying to provide visual relief and also provide for sound containment from any of the cooling units that are shown on that side of the site. With regard to lighting, a photometric plan has been provided. The applicant needs to clarify whether exterior lighting is proposed for the substation or the easement shared driveway area. We had some questions regarding the height of the light poles and the type of intensities, if with flexible head fixtures, whether the fixtures were adjusted in order to comply with the intensities, and that is just a clarification we are requiring on the photometric plan. With regard to architectural and building details, the site is utilitarian, and although it is located on a C1 zone parcel, the use is essentially a landfill, and access to the general public is not going to be allowed, and also access to employees is strictly limited based upon those who are there to provide service or maintenance. The plan originally proposed prefabricated metal buildings. However, we do have certain minimum standards in the township, even if it is a utilitarian building, and the applicant was asked to come back with a revised design for the building. At this time, the buildings that are proposed before you are to be clad in light brown, smooth-faced masonry blocks with brown split-face masonry block banding and roof-mounted mechanical equipment, which will be screened with gray aluminum screens. And the reason for requiring a quality of architecture that we would typically expect of any light industrial building is we are cognizant of the fact that the site is located across the street from residential units. Even though those are located in the city of Romulus, we believe adequate screening and mitigation impacts for residences, irrespective of which community they are located in, must be provided. So the applicant has upgraded the quality of building architecture in order to show that these buildings will look like any other industrial site within the township. We had recommended that the applicant present a colored rendering at the Planning Commission meeting. There is still some references to a prefabricated metal building on sheet 2, which must be removed. All references to any prefabricated units need to be removed. There are no trash enclosure proposed as a part of this proposal. It is on a landfill. With regard to signs, there are specific for solid-based facilities. The ordinance strictly regulates a whole bunch of signs that must be there on the property for safety purposes. And all of those safe signs will be coordinated with public safety in order to ensure that the required signage is on there. These include township signs, fire department signs, signage required by the state fire marshal, public safety officials, and the Wayne County Road Commission. Incidental signs such as no trespassing are also required and have been proposed by the applicant. With regard to fencing, per the zoning ordinance, a chain link wire fence not less than 6 feet and not more than 10 feet is required around the entire periphery of the site. Now, the fence shall be located between 80 and 100 feet from the edge of the working area of the solid waste facility. The applicant is proposing to enclose the facility with a 6-foot-tall zinc-coated or aluminum-coated chain link fence and a sliding gate to control the main access drive into the site. Now, there is an existing fence line along the front. It is a fence in good condition. It is 6 feet height. So the applicant's request is to install a gate that matches the height of the fence. Having a gate that is taller than the fence is not going to look good. So the applicant is trying to match the height of the fence. It was our recommendation that the gate not be chain link. We do not want to have the ability to look into the site. So the applicant, we offered a recommendation of maybe installing a solid vinyl fence of high quality that would actually, when the gate is closed, you will not be able to see anything inside the site at all. And that is why the fence that is proposed on there is a vinyl fence as opposed to a chain link fence, which they would have typically installed. The applicant, the revised plan also notes installation of 8-foot-tall evergreen trees placed 20 foot on center in a double staggered row along the north and south fence lines. So when you look from Hannon Street, you're going to have the existing chain link fence. You're going to have a berm. The berm is going to have a double staggered row of evergreen trees placed 20 feet on center. 20 feet is a minimum spacing required because when evergreens grow underneath, they'll kill each other off if they're any closer. By staggering them, you're ensuring that it's going to be a thick, impenetrable screen. Beyond that will be the inner drive loop aisle. There'll be the mechanical screening, which will also be the noise deadening wall. So for all means and purposes, when viewed from the road, the site will be as screened as it is possible to make such a use screened from public view. In addition to all of the landscaping and fencing requirements of the ordinance, we do have environmental performance standards. And that is what the applicant has been working on for the past several months. Specifically, the applicant was asked to provide a very detailed noise study. So the applicant has been working in order to do an extensive noise study to show what is the pattern, how many decibels emanate from the equipment projecting towards the roads, and what will be the decibel level when it crosses the road and reaches the mobile home park. The ordinance has specific standards based upon ambient noise and what the noise generated by the equipment can be. At this point of time, the sound study that the applicant has proposed does comply with the noise limitations in our ordinance. The addition of the mechanical equipment screen wall and the berms all help towards containing the noise on the applicant's site itself. As I previously mentioned, the applicant has been working on revisions to these plans for several months. We have had multiple revisions to the site plan, even though it is a principal permitted use. We have had multiple redesigns of the site, multiple Zoom meetings, in-person meetings, in order to get the project to this point where we believe every potential adverse impact that can be anticipated from a use such as this is mitigated to the best of the township's abilities by applying all applicable ordinances to it. So at this time, our recommendation is for the Planning Commission to grant preliminary site plan approval to the RNG gas recovery plant to be located at Ameresco Woodland Meadows landfill site at Ecorse and Hannon Road, subject to 8 conditions. First being consistent layout and data on all sheets, township engineer and fire marshal approval of the gravel driveway, which is all access and circulation, clarification regarding the barrier-free access ramp connection from the handicap accessible space to the sidewalk, township engineer approval of retaining walls, grading and stormwater management, Planning Commission exemption from greenbelt landscaping requirement along the west property line of the lease area, which faces the landfill on the interior, Wayne County approval of the detention basin landscaping, compliance with lighting requirements by doing the corrections that are noted in our letter, and removal of all references to prefabricated metal buildings. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have on the site plan.
Thank you. And now we have notes from Fishbeck. Mr. Lepick?
At the request of Van Buren Township, Fishbeck reviewed the preliminary site plan dated December 14th, 2023, and some revisions, with the last one being dated February 12th, 2024, submitted to the township for preliminary site plan approval for the proposed Woodland Meadows RNG facility located at 6780 Hannon Road in Van Buren Township. As far as township engineering items go, are with water main service, the applicant, the existing site has a 8-inch water main that currently extends off of Hannon Road from a 12-inch main within the road, dead ends at a hydrant. The applicant's planning on modifying that existing lead and tying in 3 proposed services to that lead, and also adding an additional hydrant lead with a hydrant at the end of that lead. Our main engineering comments on the water main service are in regards to the water main, the proposed layout. We had a couple concerns that we recommend the township staff and the engineer and the applicant continue to have discussions on what the final layout of the water main will look like. And we noted that we recommend the building department review the water service leads. They have one water service lead coming off of the 8-inch main, and it's branching a few times to go to the 3 proposed buildings that are shown on the site plan. And in terms of the hydrants, they have 2 hydrants that we noted may be fairly close together. I did have some conversations with the fire marshal. It sounds like there has been an update and some discussions regarding the compressor building may now be suppressed. So one of the hydrants is going away. There was some issue with fire flows at the one hydrant. So there's been some discussions back and forth. They do have water on site. There's 8-inch water on site. The buildings can be serviced. So at this time, we're recommending that discussions continue to be had between township staff and the applicant to determine a final water main layout. And then final hydrant layout is subject to review by the township fire marshal. There was that wall, they did put the sound barrier wall in recently. It did appear to be placed on top of one of the water service leads. So we added a note in here from February that the applicant just look at that. If there needs to be any utilities crossing the wall, that they provide details. They did show some examples from another facility with a similar wall, and there were some utilities crossing through that, so we'd ask that utilities crossing this wall be looked at and details provided. For sanitary sewer, there's an existing 12-inch sanitary sewer that flows north-south along Hannon Road. The applicant is proposing to remove an existing sanitary lead as necessary. There is an existing 6-inch lead that's on site. Again, the applicant is proposing to modify that and tie in new leads from the proposed buildings to that existing lead. Our main comment for the sanitary sewer, there has been some discussions reviewing the sanitary discharge into the township system. The applicant has had discussions with the downstream wastewater treatment plant, GLWA, and have presented the township with current limits for GLWA acceptance in regards to the sanitary contaminants in the sanitary discharge. Ongoing conversations will follow this review prior to moving towards a final site plan and engineering review. Just to briefly touch on that, there's been some discussions between the applicant and Fishbeck and township staff about what the type of discharge into the system and getting it all approved by the wastewater treatment plant. So that'll keep ongoing as this process continues. Stormwater management, the applicant's proposing a fully enclosed stormwater management system with enclosed storm sewer catch basins that will be outletted into a detention basin that will be store and treat the stormwater and eventually outlet into the proposed swale in the frontage of the property along Hannon Road. So with the stormwater, there's been some discussions about additional stormwater work, not on this site, but on the landfill site. Looks like there's going to be some detention work just to the south of this site. And the site plan mentions some work by others that are going to construct a ditch on the south side of this site and then wrap around and then go north up Hannon Road. Our main comment for that is, so as part of this site and this site plan, we are not reviewing the overall stormwater management plan that was presented for the landfill. However, this site is proposing to tie into the new proposed ditch that will be that goes eventually into a county drain from the landfill stormwater management. So for final engineering, we would require that ultimate outlet of this stormwater management system be determined and viable, so that we can approve construction, eventually approve construction plans. Because right now I believe they're proposing to outlet their stormwater management system to a ditch that is yet to be constructed. And then on top of that, we always recommend at this stage that the applicant reach out to Wayne County. I believe they already have in this case. However, for stormwater management, they'll need county approval, and we recommend they start that process early. And all correspondence with the county should be shared with the township for our records as well. So that being said, at this time, Fishbeck recommends the Planning Commission grant the Woodland Meadows RNG expansion project preliminary site plan approval based on engineering feasibility of the site, subject to the comments listed above. The applicant must review the comments above regarding the sanitary discharge requirements and the proposed water main service layout and discuss these items with township staff prior to submitting for final engineering review. The applicant should also begin discussions with the county for stormwater management if they haven't already. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Director Power from the Fire Department.
Mr. Chair. Your report packet includes a memo from the Fire Marshal and Deputy Fire Chief dated February 22nd. There's a series of comments regarding the overview of the project, site access, water supply, and other items. Regarding the overview of the project, the main comment here is that the fire suppression and gas detection systems will be required for this facility, and plans for those systems will be submitted separately. Those are more building and building trades permitting items, but those plans will need to be reviewed. Regarding site access, the first comment is that if a security gate will be installed at the entrance, a approved Knox box will be required. The device for the Van Buren Township gate access is a Knox padlock if the gate is manually operated. So per the plans, the gate will be manually operated, so that will be required. The facilities, buildings, or portions of buildings shall be accessible year-round to the fire department apparatus by way of an approved fire apparatus road with an asphalt, concrete, or approved driving surface capable of supporting the imposed load of a fire apparatus weighing up to 75,000 pounds. Per the letter dated September 28th, the maintenance of the ring road shall be provided in the engineering review submittal. The third comment regarding site access is that an emergency vehicle access plan showing vehicle movement and the turning radii of the access roads will need to be verified. And this requirement has not been submitted, but will be required with the final site plan. With regard to water supply, an approved water supply capable of supplying the required fire flow for the fire protection shall be provided to premises on which the facilities or buildings are constructed within the jurisdiction. An additional fire hydrant may be needed after determining the required fire flow. A flow test was conducted on October 4th. The hydrant used low 1,167 gallons per minute. 2,500 gallons per minute is required by code. A reduction to 25% for the fire suppression system. Sorry about that view, I'll change that. A reduction to 25% for the fire suppression system reduces the required fire flow to 1,000 GPM, eliminating the need for a second fire hydrant. I apologize, I'm not sure if there was another page from the fire marshal, but I will read that out if I find it. Oh, thank you, Commissioner Paul, I appreciate it. That's right, there were some comments regarding hazardous materials. The hazardous materials inventory statement, where required by the fire code official, an application for permit shall include a hazmat inventory statement such as a Superfunds Amendments and Reauthorization Act, Title III report, Tier 2 report, or other approved statement. The HMIS shall include certain components which are listed in the fire marshal's letter. And the next comment is that the submittal makes it difficult to determine if a secondary containment is needed for the tanks and associated processes. These details submit sufficient details to indicate the measures taken to limit secondary containment or provide details that the outdoor storage is provided with sufficient means for secondary containment, include calculations to support the design. Per the letter dated 9/28/23, a spill containment and control plan will be submitted as part of the building permit process. So those are the comments from the fire marshal. He did not state any objection to the plan moving forward through preliminary site plan review at this time. Also have, just to note back to the township engineer's report, if it's helpful, I can show the drainage plan, the utilities plans showing the water and sewer lines on the screen overhead. If that's helpful for the discussion as well. I apologize I didn't have those up earlier. And that concludes my comments. I know we have Kyle Robbins and others from Amoresco here tonight. If you'd like to hear them make some comments and explain their process and give an overview of their project as well.
Okay, thank you, Director Power. And yes, presentation by the applicant.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time this evening and letting me stand in front of you. My name is Kyle Robbins from Amoresco, on behalf of Amoresco, for the Woodland Meadows RNG expansion project here in Van Buren. I'll just go over a little bit of a brief background of our project and what we're looking at doing here. This is just a little background. We have an existing facility located at the Woodland Meadows landfill that takes landfill gas and processes it into renewable natural gas on the north end of the landfill. The proposed expansion facility will be located at the south end of the landfill along Hannon Road, where the landfill is actually expanding and more landfill gas will be located at that location. So that is why we've selected that location. It is also where the landfill gas collection point is, so we're located right nearby. This is what Dan had also showed before, but this is our site plan showing the equipment that we'll have on site. As part of a renewable natural gas site, we are processing landfill gas for injection into a natural gas pipeline. So there's a series of pieces of equipment that the gas will go through for it to be natural gas quality. And some of those are shown here. We take out we have a nitrogen removal system. We have an H2S system. We have a system that takes out the oxygen, and all of those systems are in process vessels that are shown outside of our compressor building. We have compressors that will be located inside the compressor building. And those are just some of the major pieces of equipment that will be part of this project. And this here is the landscape plan, which we've worked extensively with the planning group, and to make sure that we have placed all the necessary landscape on site for the requirements. This also shows the mechanical equipment screening wall that we've put in as well, located right here, which will help from a visual perspective as we look into the site. You'll see the landscaping, and I got a slide next on that. We'll see the landscaping and the proposed barrier, or the proposed screening wall. This here is the visual of directly across the street from the entrance road, which we would, that is our compressor building you see behind there with the equipment screening wall, as well as the proposed landscaping that will block some of the visual site of our equipment. One of the things that was mentioned was noise. We did a very extensive noise study, and this is just one visual from that really shows what we've done to try to minimize noise on the street. The blue area is the loudest area was where the equipment with the most noise is. We've placed it. We've worked to try to make our layout so that most of the exhaust fans are on the back end. Most of the equipment there is the noisiest equipment. Up front is not as much noise, and we've placed the mechanical. This blue line is the mechanical screening wall, which helps with the noise as well as screening. I will note that we updated the as shown on the other drawings. We've updated that line in this report. Actually, this visual hasn't been updated with the new line. So when we do that, the sound contours will only get better. I will point out that these do meet the zoning ordinance requirements when it comes to the sound levels. And that's, in high level, that is what our project and what we're proposing to put in at the Woodland Meadows landfill. And I thank you very much for your time tonight, and welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Before, Ms. Krishnan, you said that they are 53 feet tall, not 53 inches tall, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I said
just-
53. I just noticed. I forgot my glasses today, but yeah, it looked like inches to me.
I figured it's, okay, thank you.
It's 53 feet.
Commissioners, questions?
Through the chair,
Commissioner Butt.
will you show that picture again where you're across the street from it looking in? Is that fence going to be white like that?
Sorry, I didn't mention about that. That is the fence that we've been requested to put in for the township to have it be a white vinyl fence.
White, okay.
A correction. We had asked for a vinyl fence, but the color of the fence is subject to review by the Planning Commission. White, if it looks very stark, the fence is vinyl. It can always be matched to whatever the Planning Commission thinks is less in your face.
We would, absolutely,
I
absolutely.
would think if it was blended in with a soft green or something, it wouldn't hit you in the face. I don't,
We would gladly do
I
that,
don't like the
yeah.
color.
I personally don't like.
White is a very bright fence, so maybe it could be more of an earth tone browns or something that when you pass by, it's not so obvious that there's a fence there.
Either go with the roof of the building there or the side of that building, that brown, or or something.
Yes, we can.
We can certainly blend it in with whatever color that would work well there to blend it in. Whatever
That would be my
required.
thought.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Jarrett.
I'd ask the applicant, what is the acreage of the parcel? There's some confusion about that earlier.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that back up. It was 5.41 was one of the ones you were, that's the greater, that is correct.
One is on the agenda, but I remember seeing on one of your site plan sheets, it was 4.14, so which is the correct one?
It's 5.41,
Okay.
sorry, yep, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I assume it's safe to assume that's going to be corrected in time for the next review.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have another question. I see on the plans there's a cell tower area, and I then saw this rendering, there's a cell tower in that picture. That cell tower doesn't currently exist, or does it currently exist?
It does currently exist.
Existing.
Question for staff, technical staff, is has the size of the cell tower and location been taken into account with regard to the placement of the building and the equipment with regard to cell tower, fall down radius, that sort of level of engineering? I know that if we were putting up a communication tower, that's one of the questions we usually ask. Does it fall down into the, if it falls, is it contained in its own parcel? Explain what's going on with the cell tower, please.
Because my understanding, the cell tower is an existing feature over there, and typically when monopoles are designed, they no longer are the old style where the pole will actually tip to its full length. Monopoles are designed to collapse on themselves. So I believe the way it is designed currently, it will stay within its lease area as it collapses and not hit any of the equipment. But that said, if the applicant has done any look-see into that, if you would let the planning commission know, is that something that you had looked into?
We did not look into exactly what you said. We do, we have placed equipment away from that. We believe that it's far enough away that wouldn't be an issue.
Mr. Chair, I would suggest to staff and to the applicant that we get some corroborating documentation that there isn't a problem with that cell tower design, that it is the kind that collapses on itself in the event of a problem. We don't want to have a cell communication tower smashing into a 200 PSI natural gas processing plant. So I would like to see before the next review some corroborating documentation, if that's reasonable. I think it's reasonable.
Commissioners.
Through the chair. Just one, I guess, question on a date. In Director Power, your letter, the sound or the noise and vibration assessment, was that done in December 13th of 2023?
It was done in December of 2023
Okay,
originally.
just your letter says 2024, and I just want to, I'm the teacher today, I guess.
Man, you're
And I don't know if that makes, again, I don't know if it makes a difference, but in our motion, if we reference his letter, we just need to correct that date.
Yes, and there were actually some adjustments to some of the exhibits based on some revised data, and so there may be a later version that we'll include with the final site plan review, and we'll make sure the date's corrected.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that's why we do a preliminary review, right?
That's
So
right.
We can catch these
That's
kind
right.
of things before it gets too far down the line.
Commissioners.
Through the chair, I have some additional questions for the applicant. Can we go back to the front image?
The sound contours, the bright?
That one. Excuse me. I guess I want to talk about the visual side of it. Obviously, across the street, there's a community that's there, and to be a good neighbor, you're trying hard. You're doing your best to try to provide screening and acoustic control. But I have a few questions regarding some of that, just so it's clear and the public hears some of that information. They're not typically seeing a lot of what we see. So from a screening standpoint, I see in your rendering, you're basically along that berm. It looks like sitting on top of the berm, which there's a fence in front of it on the left-hand side of the rendering. Is that what that is?
Yeah, the existing.
Yeah.
On the left-hand side of the rendering?
Is that the existing fence in front of the trees?
That is the existing fence that the existing fence would be stay around the perimeter, right? And then just behind the fence is where the berm starts, 8-foot berm, which is right behind that fence. And the trees that you see, those 4 trees that stand up there are on top of the berm.
Right. So the trees themselves in this image, how tall are they roughly?
The berm is 8 feet and the trees,
I believe they're
off the top
8-foot
of my head, they're
evergreens.
noted on the drawings.
When they're planted at, what size are they when you plant them?
The minimum size of planting is 6 to 8 feet.
So 6 to 8 feet, and the spacing that you said was?
20 feet on center, which a double staggered row, which will be 6.
Well, they're not double staggered in the front, though, it doesn't look, at least along the road. They're just lined up there. They're staggered at the north and, or at least at the north and south side.
Yes. So you're asking what is it placed on top of the berm? I believe the spacing over there is,
It looks closer, actually, a little bit.
it looks like
But
it's
it's probably a different type, isn't it?
ruler.
They're, out front, they are PS, they're same as on the staggered side. They look closer on the road side than they do on the north and south side.
Yes,
And they're the same type, right? I don't know what they are because I can't find the legend, but,
I can verify the spacing of the trees on the berm.
so
as-
when they're fully mature, how big are they?
Depending upon the species, these evergreen trees would go up to 25, 30 feet.
Okay, and then they basically get to the point where they touch one another? So they start at about 6, they get up to 25. How long does it take to get to the point where they get close to one another?
Typically, don't quote me on this, I'm not a landscape architect. Director Power would be better at that, but
Probably 8
typically
to 10 years,
the
maybe.
lateral growth when you're placing them is greater than the vertical height growth. That takes place steadily over a period of time, but the lateral growth with an impenetrable hedge kind of view should be achieved within 5 years. The height will, of course, progressively,
I'm
it
just
takes
trying to
time.
confirm that it's going to take a little while before they actually do the screening that you're suggesting. I'm going to guess at least 5 years, right? Till they close up and provide something that looks, because I'm sure when you first plant them, you're going to see everything through those.
In addition to the trees, there is a shrub requirement also for the planting on the frontage. So it is 1 deciduous tree for every 30 lineal feet,
Right.
1 ornamental tree.
And I see those behind the berm too, which is nice. There's like 13 deciduous trees. And the calipers on those are typically, what, 2 inches?
Minimum.
2.5, which is, the height is maybe 12 feet?
Yes, that would be approximately. They also have 8 shrubs per 40 lineal feet. So when the trees are planted, you have the shrubs in the
In
middle.
front, right?
Yeah, they sort of provide the lower end cover till the trees grow to their maturity.
So in the deciduous trees, obviously, they drop their leaves in the wintertime from, say, November through April or February this time of year. And those, again, those won't provide screening yet until they get fully developed. And then, again, they're only going to do that during leafing times, right? So, and it also, just so everybody's aware, it's not, that they don't come, everything doesn't come in right away. And from an acoustic standpoint, they're not really going to be doing much for acoustics. And I don't know if that's taken into your calculations in that diagram. But if they are, it's not probably going to be, unless you took them at the early stage of the trees as opposed to the mature stage. I don't know how you ran that acoustic study.
From an acoustic standpoint, the trees don't really do a whole
would
lot
imagine- I would
anyways.
agree,
Yeah,
yeah.
to that, so they're, take the trees out of the picture and it really
Right,
wouldn't.
okay. I just
do
wanted
much on-
to understand that. And then talking a little bit about elevations, the berm currently is 8 feet to the top from the road elevation, right? It looks that way based on the grading.
Based on the grade of it's the same height as the fence, yep.
And the building pad grade is about 5 to 6 feet above, below the berm. So the berm relative to the building is only about 5 feet high, 5 to 6 feet. So my question is, at the road, of course, it's 8 feet different. So anyone traveling along the road, it definitely is a benefit. My question is, when you get across the road into the community, do you know what the elevations for that community is? Is it?
Do they look over the berm? Correct.
I mean, is it?
So based upon the elevations that are shown on this landscape plan, across the street on the east side of Hannon, the contour level is 669. The contour of the road is 670, and the top of the berm is 678. So at the time it is installed itself, it is going to be 8 feet above the road.
Above the road. I
Above
just
the
don't know what the elevation is on the other side of the road.
The other side is shown as 1 feet below the road. It's 669, road is 670.
Right, but on the side of the, it also goes down to 669 both sides of the road, right?
Yes.
Stays at 669. It may probably go back up, just from the standpoint of water runoff. So I would suggest just take a look at that, just to make sure you're not, and I don't know how you do that. Just when you come back, just take a look at those elevations to make sure that the elevations on the residential side, aren't appreciably above that berm, because if they are, then some of your analysis on the acoustic side and screening side may not be.
Mr. Grant, what you're asking for is a cross-section across to show where the residential
Yes.
places are, where the ditch or whatever is, what is the
Right.
road grade.
You might
what
not
is
have
the
an issue. I'm
cross-section.
just saying
Across.
it could be either, it could be lower for all I know, which would be maybe better for them. So then I want to talk a little bit about that sound. What is that? The sound, is it a constant sound, 24/7, never stops?
It is. The process is 24/7. So the plant will be running. There will be noise 24/7, but the
Operating hours is,
yeah, no, the operating hours are 24/7 for the plant, but during the process, some of these are vessels and the noise will go up and down.
Will
So,
go up
and
and
those,
down, okay.
those noise contours, the model was done at the highest
At the
noise that there
peak,
could
yeah.
possibly be.
do you have any idea what duration those peak times are?
You mean time of day or time of,
Good to know.
it will be on and off, based on when the plant startups, shut down, and its durations are several hours of, it'll go through for several minutes as we depress vessels. That's when typically the noise comes through, is when the vessels and the pressure is put through.
Does most of that happen during daylight hours or nighttime hours, or could be either or?
It could be either or. It's all based on, the process is running 24/7, and it could be any time.
And just for full explanation, I saw on your diagram that halfway across the floor plan of the front row of housing, that you're reading at 60 decibels, right, or dBA, whatever you. So can you describe to everyone here what that represents, as far as what is it like, as far as a sound source? Such a, I mean,
Like what does 60 mean?
Yeah.
We have that in our report. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Yeah. I think it's in the range roughly of about like maybe a vacuum cleaner running all the time, if you're like 3, 4, 5 feet away from it. That's my guess, but so I'm thinking that if, my concern is that, people are start complaining if they get, if they're waking at nighttime, and I'm not sure if there's anything additional you can do about that, or if.
This is average, normal conversation or air conditioner for 60.
60, normal air conditioner, so.
So it would be like an air conditioner, right? Like a vacuum
Or a
cleaner.
washing machine, it
Or-
says.
Yeah, but it would be, I don't know if it lasts 10 minutes, if it's 2 hours, or if it's 8 hours.
No, it's more of a short duration. It's like 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I could interject for just a moment. My read of the report also pointed out that there was one of the loudest times for this plant is if it ever needs to run on emergency power, or if it needs to cycle up the backup generator. And the report says that even when it's operating under backup power with the generator running, it's still compliant with the ordinance.
Correct. Now, I'm not debating the ordinance. I mean, the thing is, being a good neighbor is different from the ordinance. I mean, let's put it this way, the traffic's probably a bit louder than that
And
is.
in my read of the report, I'm not an audiologist. I don't know who generated the report, but they did make references to the sound of the traffic
Right.
on the road, and it seemed like their sound field, from my read of it, you should probably look at the report as well.
Yep.
But My read of it was that it was on par with or less noisy than the surrounding road. That's what I got out of the report, maybe.
And I would agree, and the reason why I asked the question about how long duration is because traffic's not 24/7. And at nighttime, it's probably a lot less than it would be during the daytime. So that's why I was asking about duration. I mean, if this is something that's running constantly all the time, it might become an issue, but if it's not, then it's not an issue.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, I just pulled up some noise data for what are the various decibel sounds. This is a study that is done by Yale University. It says a household refrigerator functions at around 55 decibels, a business office at 60 to 65 decibels, normal conversation is 60 to 70. A vacuum cleaner is about 75. A telephone's dial tone is 80, city traffic is 85, and a suburban area at night is around 40 decibels.
What's that night?
A suburban area, like where we live at night, even considering just the ambient sounds.
Background noise.
Yes, the ambient sounds would be about 40. So a 65 decibel or the 60 decibel that they're showing is basically the level of a normal human conversation without microphones.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the next time we have this review. This is a preliminary, so there'll be another, there will be a next time. I would like to know from your sound engineers, my understanding is that, and looking at the rendering, the dump isn't, the landfill isn't built up yet behind the facility, right? It's still open field because it was previously a golf course?
Correct.
Does the sound engineering analysis take into account what happens when there is a landfill at elevation behind the plant? Will the sound reflect off the landfill, and will the plant grow louder over time because of sound reflecting off of the landfill as it's built? I'm sure you don't have the answer to that question, but if you could talk to your sound reporting people and find out if they took that into account, I think that would be a good data point to know.
Will do, yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Comments, questions?
Yeah, I do have another one. There's a note for a flare. What's that? There's something noting a flare in your drawings. Is there an open flame that's going to be part of this at all?
Yes, just a second here. So this is the new facility layout, and as you'll see in the top here, we've got a thermal oxidizer and a candlestick flare.
Okay.
The thermal oxidizer takes the off gases from the process and flares it in a thermal oxidizer, burns it for destruction. The open flare will operate during upset conditions, so it will not operate continuously.
Okay.
As the other site up the street, you might have driven by it, the flare is running all the time. This will not happen at this site.
You can't miss that one, that's for sure. Okay.
Mr. Chair, one more question for the applicant. What happens to the, sorry, I'm trying to wrap my head around this whole process. The landfill creates landfill gas, which you are pulling out of the ground, out of the landfill, and cleaning and compressing, and then sending the methane somewhere else into the DTE pipeline. What happens to the landfill gas if you weren't there collecting it? What normally happens to landfill gas?
Yeah, currently today, it is being flared in a flare right now. So if we're not collecting it and we're not processing it and putting it into a natural gas pipeline, it is being flared. And so
Burned on site?
being burned on site, yeah, in a flare. Yep.
So this is considered a good thing because by collecting the gas, you can put it to better use somewhere else, burning it in a gas stove or as a fuel.
It's a renewable natural gas is a renewable fuel source, so that way it is replacing your fossil fuels that, in other words, would be burned if this is in its place.
Understood. Thanks.
Then all landfills have a flare involved with them, that they're burning off their methane or their, excuse me, their gas?
Correct. To my knowledge, correct. Yep.
Okay.
How often does that go on and off? Just curious, roughly.
At the landfill?
Yeah.
To my knowledge, they're burning at all.
the one that you're proposing, you said it goes on occasionally.
Oh, so the candlestick flare, that will go on during, I mean, I think we've permitted, in our air permit, we stated like 10% of the time. I mean, during upset conditions, during startup, when we're working through the process.
Okay.
Yep.
What gases are burned off at that point?
What gases are burned off at the?
At the candlestick flare?
It would be the same thing that's being burned in a landfill flare. So whatever gas is, we take the landfill gas and it's going through our process, and as we're starting up, we're just sending it to the candlestick flare. So whatever is coming into our beginning of our plant, and it'd be no different than it flaring at the landfill.
Does it produce any odor
The
as it burns it off?
No, it shouldn't produce any odor.
Mr. Chairman? When the applicant first came up with this proposal, Director Power and I actually looked into landfills, landfill gas, and that if the Planning Commission has driven by on Michigan Avenue, you have the Sauk Hills landfill that's got a huge flare in the back. That flares all the time.
I know,
So
yeah.
most of the landfill gases that are getting burnt off is methane, and methane is a greenhouse gas, which basically contributes to burning out that ozone hole on top of us. So I think the point, even that landfill was recently, as recent as last year, fitted with a thermal oxidizer for the specific point of harnessing the methane gas as a renewable form of energy while preventing it from going up in flames and basically creating that ozone hole. So it's sort of something that we are seeing more and more landfills incorporate. It was done at the Sauk Hills. It is being done further up, like they said, at the Woodland Meadows. And now they're trying to do the same thing, harness it here to create clean energy while trying to prevent dispelling of those landfill gases into the open atmosphere. And to my knowledge, it does not have any smell or odor when it comes out.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? I'm sorry.
Commissioner Jar?
I was wondering if the commissioners have any opinion on exempting the Greenbelt screening standards along the western property line as recommended by our consultants.
Through the chair, I have no problem with that. I mean, the back's gonna be a landfill.
Yeah.
So there's really no somebody viewing it, so I don't think.
I would see it as a waste of money to
Yeah,
put
I
something
kinda
of
would as
that.
well.
In,
Trees are always nice,
I
sir.
was gonna say, you may want to debate that after the landfill's full.
yeah.
When they have a grass backdrop and you have some trees back there, that might be nice to contribute to the environment, but now it's just it would not, it'd be kind of a waste of, would you plant it later?
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, just to kind of respond to some of the comments, I did find a planting list. I'll go through a couple of notes just quickly. A planting list on sheet 16 in the plan set. There's a variety of evergreen trees that will be part of that frontage. They include balsam fir, Atlantic white cedar, red cedar, white spruce, white pine, Douglas fir, eastern arborvitae, which are narrower and thinner, emerald green arborvitae, also narrow and shorter. So those, the rendering that was shown earlier is probably a 5 to 10 year range. That's based on the scaling, that looked like those are maybe closer to 10, 15 foot tall trees. But those evergreens should provide a pretty robust buffer. Just to verify, and again, also the line of sight idea, we'll work with the applicant to maybe pick 2 or 3 sites from what would be perspectives from the rear yards of the adjacent mobile homes.
That would be a good
work.
idea,
And to kind of demonstrate that screening at the angle. And that I believe Ms. Christian mentioned the noise ordinance requirements, but just to reiterate, we did look at this pretty closely throughout the review process. The requirement here where you're adjacent to a residential or agricultural use is that at the boundary property line, except where normal street traffic noise exceeds 65 decibels, the use noise level may equal but not exceed the traffic noise level. And in this case, the use noise level is restricted to 67 decibels at the receiving property line. So this plan has met and exceeded those requirements at least at a minimum level. Just a few additions to that conversation. So Otherwise, I have no other comments. Thank you.
I did have, what happens to your waste? You talked about H2S, which is sulfuric acid, if I remember my chemistry.
Yeah, so that's a good question. This right here is our H2S system, these vessels here, and it's a regenerative cycle. There are vessels, there's media in there. That's, that media is disposed of into the landfill that's where it came from. Yeah, essentially, yeah.
So you're sending it back,
Yeah.
okay.
I have one last question. And it's actually for Vidya, and it has to do with the berms, and it's not the height, but it's the plantings on top of the berms. Is there any concern about the evergreens dying at the top of the berm because of where they're planted and the water shedding off, or is it detailed in a way that you don't have to concern for that? 'Cause
Any requirement for an irrigation plan? Is that what you're asking?
yeah, that would be it. I had heard stories about plantings on top of berms having a little bit more difficulty.
We have a berm requirement in our zoning ordinance, and we have berms in several places in the
Okay.
township, and the trees do survive on them, provided they're properly irrigated.
Okay.
And the applicant will be held to our landscape maintenance agreement. Any tree that dies or gets diseased would immediately have to be replaced. It's not going to remain a gap. It has to be replaced.
And that's during the ownership of the property? Is that how that works?
It doesn't matter who owns it. In perpetuity, the landscape maintenance agreement is effective.
So they can't just cut a dead tree down and be done with it?
No, they cannot.
Okay. Thought I'd ask.
Okay, we have any other questions, commissioners? Public comment. Do we have anybody out of the public that would like to make a comment?
Through the chair, that goes for anybody here present tonight, but also I do have one comment in Zoom, if you'd like me to
Okay,
read
would
that.
you please?
Heather Bruce made a comment. I believe she's with your sound
She is,
consulting
yes.
team. Okay,
Yep.
so Heather Bruce mentioned that 60 decibels is similar to heavy traffic at approximately 300 feet from the edge of a roadway. So gives a perspective on what 60 decibels would be. I do not see any other hands raised. I do see another hand raised from Heather. If you would like to make another comment, would you like to be brought into the panel? I can bring you in. I see that hand raised, so let's get. I'm going to make it so that we can. I'm going to just turn up the volume a little bit, and yes, go ahead.
Perfect. I just wanted to respond to a few of your comments, questions. So we did include the planned berm into our noise analysis, and all elevation as well. So the elevation of the roadway, and then there is that kind of dip at the edge of the roadway, and then the elevation of what the homes would be on the other side of the roadway as well. We did not include vegetation, so the trees aren't going to reduce the noise levels at all, so we did not include those in our noise analysis. We also did assume all equipment would be running continuously at the maximum noise level that equipment generates. So those noise contours assume that the equipment will be on 24/7 at its maximum noise level, and it would be operating for the entirety of that hour. And then we did noise measurements, and during the daytime, so from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., the hourly average noise levels range from 63 to 71 dBA, and then the nighttime from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. range from 53 to 69 dBA. So it is still decently loud along the roadway during the nighttime hours. And then I think there was one other question about the landfill as it's being filled. So if the waste is being filled and covered with land, so it's turning into a berm-like structure in the back of the RNG facility, it will actually absorb noise and it won't be reflected. So land masses usually absorb the sound waves. If it's a harder surface like a barrier, it can be reflected, but so for ground material, it will be absorbed and not reflected off of that.
Mr. Chair, I didn't
Fill
catch
it up.
where Ms. Bruce, who she represents, who is that?
Yep.
So, Ms. Bruce,
there
could
she-
you clarify again who you're with and?
Oh, yes, I apologize. So my name is Heather Bruce. I'm with Illingworth and Rodkin. We are the noise consulting firm who completed the noise and vibration analysis for this project. I've been in this field for about 12 years. I've done multiple RNG facility analysis and do a lot of roadway and construction noise analysis as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Anybody from the audience? Anyone in the audience with any questions? Anything else on Zoom?
Nope, I see no other comments on Zoom.
Okay, commissioners, do we have a consideration on this item?
Mr. Chair, for item number 5, case 23046, Woodland Meadows RNG Expansion Project Preliminary Site Plan, I move to grant the applicant Kyle Robbins of Amoresco on behalf of Waste Management of Michigan Incorporated preliminary site plan approval to construct a methane gas recovery plant at the 5.41 acre site located as described in the agenda item based on the analysis and subject to the conditions detailed in the McKenna letter dated 21 February 2024, Fishbeck of 21 February 2024, the Van Buren Township Fire Report from the 22nd of February 2024, a letter of staff dated 22 February 2024, noting the feedback and concerns from the Planning Commission regarding minor edits and typos in the plan, and with the additional understanding that the Planning Commission grants the exception from the greenbelt and screening standards along the western property line abutting the landfill. I submit for support.
Support.
Mr. Jar?
Yes.
Conditions that the Planning Commission discussed that you would like to add to change the color of the gate to earth tone and not white, to provide information regarding the cell tower collapse safety
thank you.
study. And the third condition you had was you would like to see a cross-section across the street. There is a cross-section, but it stops just short of the residential homes to show you the residential homes too. So add those three conditions.
I would amend the motion thusly.
Support.
And support Haynes. Okay, do we have we have a motion and a support. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Yes. Bernie Grant,
Yes.
Peter Creel,
Yes.
Jackson Paul,
Yes.
Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Brian Cullen.
Yes. And hearing no no's, I assume then, no assumption, the motion is carried.
For your time tonight. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for the detailed reporting.
Yes.
Spectacular to read.
And now, general discussion, I just want to say thank you to the commissioners that we do have a quorum on a regular basis here, that we actually get our work done. I don't know if I should say that or not, but I just thought might give us a little enlightenment along the way.
Mr. Chair, if I could make a comment on that.
Yes, sir.
The township's always looking for people to volunteer their time or to work on open boards and commission slots. That's across the township. There's an application on the township website for anyone who is interested in getting involved with any of the boards and commissions in the township, and I'd encourage people to fill out the form and submit their information. Even if there are no open slots in some of the boards or commissions, they open up all the time. And we need good Van Buren Township residents to be available to volunteer their time so that we can make quorum and so that our boards and commissions function properly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Anybody else got any comments or questions or statements for our group?
I guess my only comment would be, and I've been bugging Dan about it, it looks like Wendy's is gonna open soon, if you wanna read the signs that are in the yard, and there've been trucks up there, the last few mornings when I've come into work, and I know there were cars for a long time hauling junk out of there, so, but it does look, it's kinda good to know they will reopen rather than an empty building there. And you probably have, I've also asked you about Camping World, and you said you had a
Ask that.
comment.
I was just gonna ask that. So, thank you.
Yes, I'm glad to provide an update on Camping World. They've been in touch with, direct contact with the Camping World company, who have been taking the lead on some of the permitting questions. And the latest news is that we have a minor adjustment to the floor plan that I'm having our deputy fire chief and building official review, because we want to make sure, first of all, the uses stay consistent with what this planning commission approved the uses for, but also the required fire separation areas, because of the way that there's a lack of fire suppression in the building. Those have to maintain their integrity. So there's just some minor tweaks on the inside we're looking at, but they do appear to be wanting to move forward soon. And they also have some plans that they were considering for temporary staging of units from another site, but that, as of today, I found out that's no longer the case, but they are asking a lot of questions and hopefully going to move forward soon. So
Any of that going to come before this board, or are they sticking with the plan?
sticking with the plan is the plan. So I would, if there is any change to the use areas within the building that's significant, or will add the intensity of the use or add the parking demand of the use, it will come back to you, but if not, then it won't. That's the way it's being reviewed administratively. There are several other construction projects ongoing. Just feel free to reach out to ask me about them. We will be meeting on March 13th. I know there's a few miscellaneous agenda items on deck, so just a heads up about that.
Question, we have heard about Tractor Supply. Is that still being, are they fishing around still? Have they moved forward? What's status?
You'll recall the Planning Commission and Board over the last couple of years developed that Sumter Road mixed-use district with a lot of detail behind it to make sure that anything that goes in that corridor is very specifically designed around those SRMU standards. And there has been a lot of exchange of review, comments, and information around that. And there's just some items that are design challenges. You see design challenges with every project, and they've come a long way on many of them. We're still working through a couple of them. So at this point, it's, as far as we know, an active project, but they've gone through planning staff review, which is an internal review process, and they're working on revisions to their plans. Yeah.
Okay.
Question.
Anybody else? Comments, questions? Then I look for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Support.
We got a motion and a support for adjournment. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. It was a long one tonight. 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours, a lot of agenda items.
Yeah.
And that site every day, so I'm always bugging them.
I bet.
Do you remember when
Which
the
one?
Walmart first came and they argued with us?
Oh,
like, we
yes.
built only gray,